BigBear.AI stock was down 17% last week. It's up over 66% in the last month and up over 125% in the last 3 months. So this stock has been surging recently, but last week has pulled back. So the big question now is, should you buy the pullback? Should you wait? In this video, I'm going to conduct a price analysis and offer some thoughts on this trending AI stock and whether it's a buy or a sell. Let's take a look. I'd like to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/DavidB for the 5 best stocks to buy now. Use my special link to get $200 off their epic annual subscription. Now, if you find value in my analysis of Big Bear today or other stocks on my channel, you may also find value in my email newsletter. If you subscribe, I'll send you professional trading tips to help you make more profits trading stocks. Link in the description below. Check it out. So Big Bear was down 17% last week, which was to be expected, with some buyers taking profits and selling out. So the buying has slowed down. The sellers took over last week. And after these 2 stellar weeks where Big Bear rose about 100%, a pullback was inevitable. So we've had that last week, about 17%. And potentially the risk now is towards the downside. It might fall further into this possible short-term support of $6. We just don't know yet. We've got to see how price action reacts next week. Now, I have done a price analysis of the medium-term trend, so keep watching for that. On the daily chart, we can see Big Bear has been really bullish recently. It did move up over the last 10 trading sessions. Starting down here from this support level corresponding to the medium-term trend line, around 374, we can see we've had 2 days up, 1 pullback, 3 days up, 1 pullback, and a further 2 days up before a bit of indecision. So around about 10 trading days, Big Bear was bullish. And if you caught this move, fantastic. You're probably in profit right now. However, last week, so this day here, this was Monday, July the 7th. This is where we had a bit of indecision. So you can see you've got this hammer candle here. It opened around about 778. There was a bit of selling pressure. Buyers came back in. They didn't want to take it low, and then it closed about the same price. And after this candle, I was expecting Big Bear to push higher in the next session. And it did do that. It did push up in the next session on Tuesday to make a new high around about $8.76. So quite bullish. However, it was only short-lived. A lot of sellers came in then. So obviously anybody who bought down here and they'd be in significant profit, obviously this target was enough for them and they started selling. Others followed. Perhaps they hit their target as well. And then the price did close lower on the Tuesday. And then there was more selling pressure for the rest of the week. So you can see here, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, there was more selling action. So sellers in full control last week for Big Bear. And overall last week, Big Bear closed at $6.45. So the big question is for Big Bear, is it going to fall further next week? Based on the price action last week, that does look likely, especially based on Friday's trading session. We've got a big red bar. We've got the open here around about $7, and then it closed low at the bottom of the bar around $6.45. So a bearish bar last Friday, and that does suggest that Monday's session will feature more selling. It's not guaranteed. Buyers might come back in, but based on this bar here, the next session should be bearish also. And of course, where could Big Bear fall into to find support? It could be $6, which is obviously the bottom of this gap corresponding to the peak of this bar here, which was formed on Friday a few weeks ago. So it could fall into there and reverse. If it falls through $6, it might be looking for this level down here of 481. And that, in theory, could be a support level based on the price action back here. So if I swap across to the weekly chart, you can see you've got this peak back here created in March 2024. This could offer support for Big Bear. And you can see we've got this short-term trend line moving up as well, with higher highs and higher lows. Up until this point, Big Bear was trending up quite sustainably before it broke out. So it's possible that Big Bear could be sold off, break $6 and perhaps find support at this level here corresponding with the medium-term trend line. That's a possibility, but that is a bearish scenario. The more bullish scenario would be that Big Bear finds support around about $6 or where it is, where it closed last Friday, and starts to move up and perhaps take out this high next week of 877. Move up and try and target that $10 level up here. That's obviously the more bullish scenario. Now you can see on screen on the weekly chart for Big Bear, I've done an analysis on the price action based on a 20-week cycle. So you can see that from this point here, using this trend line, we can see that Big Bear did move up sustainably for about 9 weeks before there was a surge in price action. And that surge was over 2 weeks. Before sellers came in, there was selling pressure, buying ran out. And then in this particular 20-week cycle, the price declined. And it declined over 9 weeks. You can see, you can count the bars here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 weeks from the peak until it found support at this bar here. So if this is accurate, and take this with a pinch of salt, so to speak, because I have played around with the boxes, but cycles do repeat. Price action has a habit of repeating because there's always human psychology behind the price action. It's the same people buying and selling based on different levels of support and resistance. So 9 weeks down to this trough here. Now, if you look at this action here, there's also been approximately 9 weeks of sustained movement up with Big Bear before once again we had 2 weeks of euphoric buying action. So you can see here, these were the most recent 2 weeks where Big Bear surged. And last week we had a pullback. Now, in the most recent peak here, so this peak created in February this year, the decline was 9 weeks. It took 9 weeks from the peak to bottom out. So in theory, if this 20-week cycle repeats, then we've got another 8 weeks before Big Bear finds a bottom. If it follows this previous 20-week cycle. It might not. The cycle might be shorter. Now, what you'll also notice is, if I zoom out a bit, the bottom down here was around about $1.12. So Big Bear did move up here before the trend sort of increased. It deflected and got more aggressive. So the trend to here, it got steeper and got steeper once again. And you'll notice after this cycle, after this peak here, Big Bear was sold off, but it declined into this support level of $2.35. So it actually ended up with a higher base than before. So in theory, if Big Bear is medium to long-term bullish and buyers come in to buy this stock, they believe in the stock longer term, what we might find is, although Big Bear does pull back potentially over the next 9 weeks, could be 6 weeks, potentially that higher base could be this level here of around $4.83, corresponding to the trend line. So it might pull back, but it might find support at a higher level, meaning it's more longer term bullish. So effectively, we might get price action like this for a bullish scenario. Price action has moved up steadily from here, and then it created this peak here. It might pull back now to find support at 6 and obviously move up from there. That would be a bullish scenario and move up to perhaps challenge $10. A more bearish scenario would be that it falls through $6 and finds support a bit lower around this $4.80 level, corresponding with the trend line. And if it finds support there, then it can obviously move up from that point and move up towards the $10 target. So still bullish, but it might take a bit longer to move up. And for a more bearish scenario, and I think this one is probably unlikely, but still possible, price does retrace from this peak. It comes all the way back down. Perhaps it falls through $6. There's a little bit of a rally back up. It gets sold off again and ends up coming back down into this zone here. Worst case scenario is going to test 230 again, the same low as down here. So that is a possibility, but I think that's unlikely. I do think it's looking more bullish, and if it can find support around this level here, or even where it is, I think it's going to start moving up again. So this model is just a theory. It is possible that this cycle might unfold again. I think next week is going to be critical for Big Bear to show who is in control. Are the sellers going to stay in control next week, and we're going to see further red bars over the next few weeks? That might play into this theory, and price might find support, further down. So based on this analysis, should you buy Big Bear now? I think for a short-term trade, it's too much risk at the moment. You have to wait for confirmation that Big Bear is moving up. It does look as if at the moment it wants to move down a bit further. And I think for an entry for Big Bear on the weekly chart, you'll have to wait for price to reverse and take out this peak here in order to buy on confirmation around about this 875 mark, and then potentially as a short-term trade up to the $10 target. So what if you're holding Big Bear right now? What are your options? In a few previous videos, I talked about trade management. So for example, you might have entered here at $6, which would have seen the price surge and rise up, obviously, in the last few weeks. You might have been in a great profit position. But of course, we know the volatility of this stock. It is hard to manage. So you may have only moved your stop loss up recently, perhaps only to the $6 level. So overall, Big Bear is looking bullish over the medium term, but short term, it's looking bearish. So risk is advised. It's not the time to be buying into this stock now for a trade. You could buy the pullback, but that would be high risk. It does look as if Big Bear might fall further before it finds support. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you holding Big Bear right now? Perhaps your stop loss was triggered last week and now you're out of the trade. Or are you wondering about where you should take profit? Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching.